Yeah, YouTubers, Tasman here, bringing you another episode of Learn JavaScript with Foundry VTT. And so in our last episodes, we've been talking about arrays and going more in depth in those. And more importantly, we've even been going into objects and how cool those are. The next area I want to go is kind of a tricky one. I've been trying to think of the best way that I could actually teach it, and I haven't come up with one that makes it easily explained. So here's what I'm thinking. Probably I'm going to take the next couple of weeks to actually kind of come up with an idea of how to teach it. You probably won't see another Learn JavaScript video until maybe early next year, like the first week or so. Just because Christmas is coming up and all that stuff, I'm sure it's going to be really busy and hard to get those done. So I'm going to focus on trying to do it. But what we're going to learn about is callbacks, promises, and async and await, which are pretty darn important. And just to give you a real quick idea of what these things are is like JavaScript is a synchronous programming language, which simply means when it's running, it runs one line of code. When that completes, it runs the next line of code. When that completes, it runs the next line of code. And it just does that until it hits the bottom. And it doesn't ever really return to another chunk of code. It might seem like it does when it does a loop, but the loop is actually kind of its own little special code segment. But if you imagine like a loop of 5 things, it's actually running one thing that's kind of repeated 5 times, not going actually physically back to the beginning of a loop kind of thing, if that makes sense. If not, that's okay, because it's kind of really hard to understand. But another way of talking about synchronous things is single-threaded. You might have heard that term in programming, that you have a multi-threaded program or a single-threaded program. And that what that's saying is if it's multi-threaded, part of the program could be doing this while another part of the program could be doing this. And, the language itself and the compiler that does it, it knows how to handle 2 things running simultaneously. JavaScript is not that way, mostly because of that's the way a browser works. When you load a web page, it'll run the HTML, and then it goes down to the head and does all the different parts in the head, and then it will go to the body and it'll do the body. And if one of those components fell, one of those elements fell in the body, your page does not come up because it fell at that point. If it gets all the way to the close HTML element at the very bottom, your page does come up, right? So JavaScript is basically the same as that. Excuse me. Well, I forgot to put this over here so you could see. It doesn't really matter. I don't know that we're going to be really writing any code in this. So anyway, what a callback is it's where your JavaScript is going to hand off a function or a chunk of code within a function to a third-party API, Node.js, or the browser itself or something like that. And it's going to hand that off, and it's going to say, okay, I've handed it off, I'm done, and it will go ahead and go continue processing the rest of the code without worrying whether that thing that was handed off really gets completed or not, or when it gets completed. When it does get completed, it comes back to the program, says, hey, I'm done, and then the program takes that and says, okay, I'm displaying this information as well. An analogy for that would be, let's say you go to a fairly fancy restaurant and you go up to the what is it, the maitre d' or whoever's at the seating person, and they say, oh, sorry, we're full right now. If you give me your name and phone number, I can text you when a table becomes available. So you write down your name and you write down your phone number and you give it to them. So you're giving them all the control to text you when they actually have a table come available. Now, one side effect of that is you have no idea what they're doing with that. You might all of a sudden start getting random texts, you know, of specials and stuff from the restaurant, or maybe they sell your number to someone else and now you start getting even more texts of all kinds of random stuff. So that's a callback. Basically, you're passing it, you're giving all the control of whatever you're trying to do to a third-party app, and it has control of when it comes back to you. It has control of what it does with that information. A promise is kind of different, and from I'm studying a little bit more on async and await, which is newer, but these two, from what I've read so far, is they're similar in the sense that they're more like you go to the restaurant, you ask, you know, for a table for 3 or something like that, and they give you this little disc. And this disc has little lights in it, and when your order's ready, it's going to start vibrating. So in this case, the third party is actually giving you something. You're not giving the control. You're not giving a phone number, an address, or any of that information to them. They're giving you something. Now, that little disc that they give you has 3 states. One is its pending state, saying that it's waiting for a promise, or, well, yeah, you could call it the promise, to be fulfilled. The second state is when it is fulfilled or resolved, and that's when the lights start flashing and it buzzes and you know that your table's ready. And the third state technically isn't one that you really see, but is a failure state. We're going to pretend there's an actual failure state with it, even though there's technically not. The failure state is, let's say they gave it to you, told you it's going to be 30 minutes, but they actually close in 30 minutes. They weren't thinking about it. So it's never really going to resolve. It's going to error out. You know, you're going to have to go give it back. Now, what I mean by you have the control and they don't in this case is, when you take this disc or whatever, you can go and do whatever you want, kind of like you did with the texting version. However, you may never ever get that text if it fails or whatever. With this little disc and stuff, you can still do that, but they're the ones that have to, you know, they have to resolve that promise. So let's see. So anyway, when that goes off, I still have control. I can say, you know what? I'm not hungry for here anymore. I'm going to ignore it. You know, I'm going to go set the disc on a table and just walk away, go get food somewhere else that's quicker. Or I could actually go claim my table. Or if it doesn't go off after the 30 minutes that they've told me it should, I can go ask them what's going on. Why is it not gone off? It's been 30 minutes. You said it should have gone off, which is a failure state. Now, this is probably really confusing for you, but the difference between the two is, one, you have the control of what to do with that promise that was given. The first one, the callback, is they have all the control, and you don't know what they're doing with any of the stuff you have. They could be selling it. They could be, you know, using it for other things. You're just giving them the function or whatever you're passing. They're doing it. When they're good and ready, they'll let you know. If that confused you, I apologize. Kind of trying to explain it kind of confused me even as well. But when we do these videos on the callbacks, promises, and async and await, we'll definitely try and make it more clear. And as you can see, I don't quite have the perfect analogy or the perfect way of portraying that information right now, which is why I want to take this little break. However, if there are things that you would like a little more information on that we have been doing with our past stuff, let me know down in the comments through my Discord. And maybe I can throw up a quick episode that isn't necessarily, progressing with what we have, but kind of, helping resolve any issues you might have or any questions you might have. Or if you have, things that you want to say, once again, comments, my Discord, if you want to tell me good analogies for promises and callbacks and async await, that'd be really good as well. Or any pointers, tips, or where else you want to see after the promises, async callbacks and all that. Because I was kind of thinking, I'm not sure that there's much more, at least that I can think of off the top of my head, where we need to go after that. I don't know if that means, the learn JavaScript with Foundry is kind of complete. Like I said originally, part of the reason this is learn JavaScript with Foundry is because we're not necessarily going into like DCOM and things like that, where it's a web page and you're interacting with the web page directly and things like that. We're interacting with the Foundry API. So I'd really like your guys' input on some of this stuff. I think I've rattled on long enough, so I'm going to go ahead and close out this episode. I apologize once again for kind of being scatterbrained and maybe not even doing a very good analogy. But I hope you did enjoy the episode a little bit, just a tiny bit. And if you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up down below. Comment, like, subscribe, click the notification bell, the standard stuff. Follow me on Twitter, check out my Discord, tell other people about my channel, check it out. If they like what they see, they can sub. And that's it, my friends. Until next time, I'll be seeing you later. Bye.